EcoFlow just sent me their brand new WAVE 2. Now the original WAVE is a portable AC, but this new version uses a heat pump technology so it can work as either a 6100 BTU heater or a 5100 BTU AC, all in a portable, battery-powered package that you can use in your camper van, tiny home, or even in a tent. I'll test whether the WAVE 2 is better than heating up a room than a standard space heater. I'll also test how well this will cool down my van on a super hot day. I'll also test it inside this tent to see whether it can stay cool during the day with the WAVE 2's air conditioner.
During lunch, you can pick up the WAVE 2 for $999 or the bundle with battery for $15.99. Click the link in the description and use my code to get an extra 5% off the WAVE 2 until June 15.
Up until now, heat pumps have been large units that have been installed outside your home, but EcoFlow has managed to miniaturize this tech down into a small, portable package that only weighs 32 pounds. Let's take a look at the design of the WAVE 2. It looks a lot sleeker than the original and moves the controls and screen to the top of the unit for easier access. Now, fresh air is pulled in from the back and warmed or cooled and pushed through the front. It vents out waste heat or cold through the top, and that's usually ducted away through a window when used inside. In the box, they give you all the parts you need to set it up. There's an AC power cord with organizer, covers for the front, back, and top vents that thread onto a pair of insulated ducts, and a drain hose for condensation. They also include this piece of pre-cut foam that has holes for both ducts to make it a little easier to install in a window, which is a nice touch. All right, I've waited a few hours to let things settle from shipping, so let's fire it up and see how it works. The AC input is on the side, so you just need to plug it into the wall and press the power button. The function button toggles between cooling, heating, and fan modes. The display is really bright and clear, just like all EcoFlow products. It tells you the set temperature in the center. You can adjust the target temp with the up and down buttons. The fan button toggles between low, medium, and high settings. The mode selector on the left switches between max, eco, custom, and sleep modes. You should pair this up with EcoFlow's smartphone app for iOS and Android to control the WAVE 2. I really like the cool animations on the main screen when you switch between heating and cooling modes. There's all sorts of advanced settings that you can control and the ability to update the firmware. For a more portable option, you can pick up the special WAVE 2 extra battery pack. This has a larger capacity than the Delta 2 with a 1,159 watt-hour NCM battery that weighs 17.2 pounds, but is very easy to manage because it has this integrated handle and it's quite thin. Just line up the WAVE 2, place it onto the battery, and slide it forward to lock it in. There's an unlock button on the side to separate them. Just press and slide backward to release. Like the Glacier, it uses an NCM battery, so it's only rated at 800 cycles. This is something that could get cycled very frequently, even daily, so it is unfortunate that it has such a short lifespan. It connects with the included XT150 cable. This is an ultra-short version of the cable that comes with all of the Delta series to connect to their extra batteries. When connected to the WAVE 2, you can see how much time is remaining on the screen. They include an 18-watt USB-A and a 100-watt USB-C port on the battery, so you can charge your electronics, which is a great feature. I wish all EcoFlow batteries had the USB output on them. You can also power the WAVE 2 with any Delta power station that has an expansion port. I connected the WAVE 2 to my new Delta 2 with the XT150 cable that came with the extra battery, and it worked flawlessly. On max heat mode, this pulled up to 275 watts. Switching into eco mode, it dropped to around 190 watts, but it cycles the compressor on and off more frequently, so it's mostly using the fan, which is only around 10 watts. Switching to air conditioning, in max mode it pulled around 220 watts and 100 watts or so when the compressor was in eco mode, so this thing really sips power. You can plug in up to 400 watts of solar or 200 watts of car charging through the XT60 port on the side of the WAVE 2 to recharge the battery and extend run times. But remember, it can't run directly off either. It trickle charges at 100 watts from the car at 12 volts or 200 watts with a 24 volt system. So this will take anywhere from 6 to 12 hours to recharge. If you try running the WAVE 2 with the car charger or solar without the battery, it will turn on but only lets you use it in fan mode. I hooked this up to a large 330 watt residential solar panel, and it charged the battery in about 4 hours. So it can definitely refill it on a sunny day. So is the heat pump in the Wave 2 actually more efficient than a typical space heater? To find out, I brought both into my 10 by 14 foot guest room. Both of these units at max power should be pretty comparable output-wise because a 1500 watt space heater outputs around 5100 BTU, and the Wave is rated at 6100 BTU in heater mode. What I really want to know in this test is how long will each run on 1 kilowatt hour of power, and which will be able to heat up the room the most. And to make it as fair as possible, we're going to power both with this Delta 2 that has a 1 kilowatt hour battery. Right off the bat, the Wave 2 is much bulkier and more complicated to set up because I need to run 2 vent hoses out the window by using this foam adapter they provided, and I had to patch the extra hole with some foam board and lots of tape. It's 44 degrees Fahrenheit out right now, and this is a bit leaky, so I'll keep everything in place between both tests to keep it as fair as possible. All right, let's start with the Wave 2. I fired this up in max heating mode. Once it got going, it consistently pulled 360 watts. There was some really toasty air blowing out the front, and the room started at 69.8 degrees Fahrenheit and steadily warmed up to a peak of 78.1 degrees Fahrenheit before the Delta 2 ran out of juice. The total runtime was 2 hours and 20 minutes, and it raised the temperature by 8.3 degrees. Next up, the 1500 watt Vornado space heater. I fired this up on max temperature and high power, and it pulled a steady 1400 watts. The air felt hotter than the heat pump, but it drained the Delta 2 in just 32 minutes. Only warmed the room from 70.4 degrees Fahrenheit to 76.1 Fahrenheit, 2 degrees less than the Wave 2. For noise, even though the Wave 2 only measured 2 to 3 decibels quieter at 1 meter, the space heater sounded way louder because it kicked the Delta 2's fans in high gear because of the high power draw. Just listen to the difference. So the Delta 2 ran for 4.4 times longer with the same energy, raised the temperature 2 degrees more, and was quieter. Looking at the temperature charts, you can see just how much more the Delta 2 heated up the space and kept it toasty longer. The space heater looks like a small blip in comparison, so if you want to heat your van or tent without fossil fuel, the heat pump in the Wave 2 is a game changer. In heater mode, it will collect condensation, so be sure to attach the hose, press the button, and drain the water before picking it up, or, well, you'll have a mess to clean up like I did. In AC mode, you have the choice to either evaporate the condensation back into the air, or you can collect it and drain it to lower the humidity in the room. That option is controlled in the app. I also want to test the Wave 2 in my Chrysler minivan. I use this as a camper in the summertime, and it can get quite hot at night when you're trying to sleep. So I want to see if I can hook up the Wave 2, use it as an AC, and see how long it will run on its internal battery. All right, so it's just a little after noon, and it is scorching in the van. It's already, I think, 117 degrees. So it is super uncomfortable in here. So I just got the Wave 2, I set it up on a seat here in the van. What I'm gonna do is connect the vent here out the window, fire it up, and see how it goes. So it's barely turned on. I think it's really just the fans at this point, but it is already so much more comfortable in here. And the compressor will turn on in 1 sec, and it will start cooling down the car. Okay, so the compressor's kicked on, and it was estimating about 3 hours of runtime with the internal battery. Now I did notice that when the compressors cycled off again, the times turned up quite a bit. So we're just gonna have to see how long it really runs in the real world. So the Wave 2 just died after 2 hours and 20 minutes. And that makes perfect sense because this thing was cranking at 500 to 550 watts the entire time, and it's a 1.1 kilowatt hour battery. During the entire duration, it kept the car temperature really comfortable between 81 and 82 degrees, which may not sound that impressive, but it's 85 degrees outside, and with a black car like this in the sun the entire time, this would easily be 125 to 130 degrees in here. So 125 down to 81 is a really big difference. The air coming out of the Wave 2 was a really chilly 71 degrees, and the air coming out of the exhaust was up to 140 degrees. So there is a massive difference there of 70 degrees. So this thing is really impressive, and it did a really great job considering the space that it was trying to cool down and just how hot it would be in here normally. As far as noise is concerned, it was only about 60 decibels, maybe 1.5 feet away from the Wave, and it was very pleasant sounding. It's much more like a fan than a typical window AC because it doesn't have that loud rumbling sound that you normally get. For our next test, what I want to do is try the Wave 2 in this tent during a hot day and see whether the air conditioning can keep this comfortable, and how long the battery will last.
Setting up the Wave 2 is really simple when it's outside because you just need to attach the front cover to the output vent, twist on the hose, slide it into the tent, and zip the door closed around it. I hung a thermometer inside the tent, zipped the flies indoors. I also have a thermometer outside to compare the ambient temperatures. Today has a high of 72 degrees, but by 11:15 a.m. it's already 111.6 inside the tent with the fly on. I set the Wave AC in max mode, and after 15 minutes it dropped the temperature from 111.6 to 84.6, which is an impressive 27-degree Fahrenheit drop. Since the battery pack would run out by 2 p.m., which is the hottest part of the day, I decided to plug this 330-watt solar panel in to see if that could extend run times. I hooked it up with the MC4 to XT60 cable from my Delta power stations. Once I plugged the panel in, the runtime estimate climbed to 6.6 hours, but I noticed that the time estimates would shift by hours depending on whether the compressor was on or not. As the day went on, it unfortunately started getting cloudy and solar couldn't keep up, so the battery charge began to drop. 4 hours in, the battery was at 30%, so I decided to switch to eco mode. It finally died at 5:20 p.m., so it ran for 6 hours with the help of solar, and would probably have run out after 2.5 to 3 hours by itself. Here's a chart showing how hot the tent got in a similar day. So this test shows me that this can cool the air down in a small space by 30 to 50 degrees, which is impressive considering that there is zero insulation on the tent.
All right, I hope these tests give you a good idea of how well the Wave 2 will perform in the real world. Now keep in mind that I was testing pretty extreme situations where I wanted to cool the space down by 30 to 40 degrees to really push it to its limits. That translated into 2 to 3 hour run times with its internal 1.1 kilowatt hour battery, but with smaller temperature changes, this will run for a very long time on eco or sleep mode. Now since you can plug this into a larger Delta unit or their extra batteries, you can get some really long run times. Let's talk about pros and cons. The biggest pro is this has heating and cooling in a single unit. Now that's completely unique on the market. It's also compact and very lightweight for what it is. It's super efficient and just sips energy. It's also really quiet with a really nice sounding fan. The integrated solar charger and car charger is incredibly useful. I really like the smartphone app control with really slick animations and full control over all the features. The overall design is really attractive, and I really like the display. It's super clear and easy to use. And the integrated battery is a really nice option to have. So is the Wave 2 perfect? Of course not. Let's talk about some of the cons. First of all, the NCM battery will have a fairly limited lifespan of only 800 cycles, and I sort of question the value of that battery compared to just buying a Delta power station. Next, the hoses can be a hassle to install because you need to trim them into a window and create a good seal. I do wish they included a full window trim kit or offered that as an accessory. And lastly, cost. This is clearly a premium product, and so it is quite expensive. That said, I really do think it's a good value because you're getting a heater and an air conditioner in a single unit. As you can tell, I am very impressed with the Wave 2. All right, everyone, thanks for watching. Till next time.